Oh, hi everyone. How you doing today? I'm just out doing some chainsaw work, and I thought while I was doing this, I'd talk to you a little bit about carrying a chainsaw as a nomad. Why would you do it? Who should do it? And most importantly, who should not carry a chainsaw? That's one of probably the most important things I'm going to tell you. So I like having a chainsaw. I bought some land, so that made owning a chainsaw pretty important to me. I want to talk to you today about owning chainsaws. First, let me tell you, this is most important of all. If you're on a tight budget, the last thing you should buy is a chainsaw. The physical ability to operate a chainsaw safely, if you don't have that, don't even think about a chainsaw. If you don't have the room in your rig to carry a chainsaw, then don't even consider it. I mean, it's too low a priority. A good hatchet will do what a chainsaw will do, very slowly, but you'll get your exercise in. But it's expensive, it's dangerous, and it takes up quite a bit of space. So factor those things in before you even consider getting a chainsaw. Who should get a chainsaw? What are the factors that might play into you thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to get one of those? Well, first it's, do you have the money? I mean, this is money tied up, and it's strictly a luxury. This is a luxury item, and if you have the money to buy luxuries with, you might very well be glad you bought a chainsaw, and I'll tell you later on some of the other things that come into that decision. The next question I have for you is, do you have the room? And if you have plenty of room, you're pulling a trailer, you got a big rig, you spend enough time outside, then yeah, a chainsaw might be for you. I think another consideration is, do you ever intend to buy land? I mean, if one day you hope to own land, spend some time out on it every year. I'm a nomad. I'm always going to be a nomad. I'm a snowbird now. I've got land. I'll probably spend 4 months of my year on this land. So having land, you can see I got a lot of dead trees on my land here. Having land is a very good reason that you might want to consider buying a chainsaw. It's not the only reason, but it's a big part of the decisions you would make. Another really important thing is, do you spend most of your time in the desert? In the desert, you don't have much use for a chainsaw. It just takes up space, it burns money. If you're going to spend the majority of your time in the desert or the high desert, then a chainsaw will be almost no value to you. Don't even think about getting one. So it's really important to not just throw money away. Oh, Bob said go buy a chainsaw, I'm going to go buy one. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying for a few of you, it might be something to really consider purchasing. For the majority of you, it is not. So this video is focused on those few. Okay, next I want to talk about which chainsaw to buy if you have decided that a chainsaw works for you. Well, there are basically three types. There's gas, traditional gas, which all of us are familiar with, the whine of a screaming two-stroke engine. There is 110 volt electric, and that means plugging it in somewhere, and you're out in the woods where that's probably going to be a generator or an inverter. And then you run a cord to everywhere you're working. And the third major category is what I have here. This is a Milwaukee, and it's battery operated. Let me get that battery out of there. And so it just uses batteries. The bigger the battery, the better. This is a battery operated chainsaw, and to my mind, well, I would just immediately eliminate a 110 electric, because you got to carry a generator, probably an inverter, and you'd have to have a huge amount of solar and battery bank to be able to run that off an inverter. So you got to carry a generator, and then you always have a cord. It's corded, and so you have to carry the generator out with you out into the woods, and then you've got a cord leading up to you and a pile of brush. And if you've ever used a chainsaw, you know pretty quickly you end up with a great big pile of brush. I've actually used a corded. I do not recommend. I don't think that's a good choice. I think the cordless is really the best balance. If you're going to buy electric, buy a battery powered cordless. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of a cordless battery operated chainsaw and a real gas chainsaw. They each have really strong points, and you have to decide which ones are really important to you. A gas-powered chainsaw is actually more powerful. If you can buy them in any size of engine, any size of bar, you can size it to your needs, and it's probably going to be stronger, faster, in every way better. So it might even be cheaper. You know, this is a 16-inch bar. You can buy you can actually buy a good Husqvarna for, you know, and Husqvarna is a great name in chainsaws. You can buy a Husqvarna 16-inch for less than this. So it can be cheaper. In a lot of ways, they are better. You don't have to buy and replace batteries. You know, if you're going to stick a battery in this, in this thing, then it's going to be constant replacement of the batteries. Hopefully, if you don't use it a lot, probably. It might not be every 2, 3, 4, 5 years, but you are going to be replacing these batteries. So there's a lot of reasons why you'd buy a gas. Why would you not buy gas? Why did I not buy gas? I've owned gas chainsaws. I've owned a Husqvarna, great chainsaw. So I've owned them, and I deliberately chose not to get one. Why? First, gas. You got to carry gas in a gas can, and you got to mix it. And so then you have to keep filling it. And I don't want to have to carry an extra can of gas. To my mind, that's dangerous. The gas goes bad. If you go months without using it, don't get it all consumed right away, it'll go bad on you, and you'll put it in your chainsaw, and then it'll gum up your chainsaw, and then you don't have either thing working. So I'm not a fan because you have to carry gas. They're so temperamental. I mean, a Husqvarna is a really good chainsaw, but you know, every so often you'd go out there and you'd go to start it, and it would take a dozen pulls, and maybe it still wouldn't start, and you don't know why. And the next time you go out to use it, it'll start on the second pull. They're weird. They're just temperamental engines, and I don't know if it's temperature or they get in a bad mood. I don't know, but you know, starting one is always an iffy proposition. And they need to be repaired. They're going to need to be repaired really often. You use one the whole summer, it might be time for a tune-up. It might be time to go into the shop and just have those guys tear it all apart and look at it. One other thing I didn't like about having a gas chainsaw was having to mix the gas. You had to have a gas can. It had to be dedicated to the saw because you're going to mix two-stroke oil with it. You have to carry the two-stroke oil. All this stuff gets constantly dirty. You know, it's just the nature of chainsaw work that it's going to be dirty, and you're going to be handling it with dirty gloved hands, and before long everything is covered in bar oil and sawdust, ground fine powder. So it's going to be dirty. Putting it in your rig is going to be kind of a dirty mess. You want to clean it up every time you put it away, but it's still going to be oily and dirty. So next, let's talk about price. So you can buy a battery-powered cordless electric chainsaw for between $150 and $200, and that's probably going to be a Chinese no-name. My recommendation is that you probably want to spend the money and get a much better one. This one was $329. Milwaukee is right now, they've got one of the best reputations in the market. I think they make the best tools. I just looked at Amazon yesterday, and now on Amazon you can get this exact chainsaw for $291. Well, the DeWalt is cheaper, the Ryobi is cheaper than it, so you can buy cheaper brands. But you're going to spend between $200 and $300 on the chainsaw itself. Then you got to buy the batteries, and these things are really power hungry. You either need to have a whole lot of small batteries, or you need to have a few big batteries. This is a medium-sized. Batteries for cordless tools are rated in amp hours, just like the battery in your rig. A small one is 1 or 2 amp hours. What has become almost a universal standard is 4 amp hours. Then you can buy 5 amp hours, 6 amp hours. This is an 8 amp hour, and I think one of the very biggest you can buy is a 12 amp hour. It would be the big brother to this one. The ideal battery for this chainsaw in the Milwaukee is the 12 amp hour. It's $200. So you're into $500, before you cut your first cut. You have to buy bar oil. These things eat bar oil. As the chain goes around and around, it's cutting. And if you don't use some bar oil on it, it's automatic. It's got an automatic oiler. All you have to do is take off the cap, pour the oil in. It's no big deal. It does get pretty messy because it's flinging bar oil all the time, and it ends up kind of getting all over. Of course, you're going to need a pair of gloves, but you probably have a pair of gloves, so you need gloves. And what I just really tremendously recommend is a hard hat with hearing protection, as well as a cover. You got to protect your face because you say, well, I'll just wear safety glasses. They're comfortable and I've got some good ones. But you got stuff flying all over your face. It's not, and your eyes are going to be okay, but you got stuff flying all over your face. This one was one I really liked. It was $33, and it comes with a mesh, which on a hot day you really want mesh, and it also comes with a clear plastic. And so there would be days when you would want the clear plastic. I get almost nothing through the mesh, but a hat, and I have been cutting and had a limb fall on my land on my head. I had a hard hat on. I just really recommend you never chainsaw without hearing protection, head protection, and eye and face protection. And this provides them all in one pretty cool, well, it's not cool, is it? One nice, neat, tidy package. This was $33, so it wasn't all that expensive. There are a couple of other PPE pieces of equipment, personal protection piece of equipment that you might consider. You can buy Chaps that have Kevlar, and they make a huge difference. That if you go to YouTube, you can see a lot of demonstrations of hitting a pair of those Chaps with the blade. It's got a brake on it, and so it stops pretty quick if you start to lose control. But it will spin long enough to hit your leg, and by far the most likely thing you're to do is to hit your feet and your legs. So these Chaps, and they're pretty expensive. They're $80, $90, $100 and up. You can spend as much as you want. Also, something as simple as steel-toed boots, you know. You hit your toe, well, you got a steel toe there. So a hat and gloves and steel-toed boots, you know, you may have already, those aren't expensive, you can buy those. The next important thing you were going to ask yourself, and you probably asked yourself immediately, was, why in the world would I carry a chainsaw? It takes up space, it's really expensive. I don't see any advantage to a chainsaw. And for the majority of you, there isn't. There have been a couple times in my nomad life, probably a dozen, when I wished a lot I had a chainsaw. At least 5 times I have been in a campsite in the national forest, meaning there were great big trees all around me, and I went to leave and there was a tree over the road that had fallen since I came in. I mean, like I said, that's 5 times out of the 20 years I've been doing this. That's not a lot, granted, but if you're stuck and you can't get out, doesn't matter if it happens often, it's happening right then. One of those times, it was a very small tree, well, you know, relatively small tree, and a friend and I went out with our hatchets and just hacked at it until we got it cut. Another occurrence is when I'm going to a campsite. This has happened to me, I think, 3 times. And I have this campsite and I love it. It's way back in the mountains, it's gorgeous. And so I've driven a long ways to get to there, and I'm going back and there's a tree down over it. Another reason is if you love campfires, and a lot of us love campfires, you want to be able to go in and have a campfire every day, sit around it, bring friends. Well, if you do that, you're going to have a lot of wood you're going to burn, and you need to get it. Another reason you might want to think about carrying a chainsaw is if you cook over wood. And actually, cooking over wood is a great idea. Another reason that you might want to carry a chainsaw, and it would be well worth it, is if you are burning wood in a wood stove to heat over the winter. You see I have my tent set up back there. It has a wood stove in it. I could heat that over the winter. And if you go to YouTube, boy, there are a bunch of videos of guys who are living over the winter and heating with wood on their land. A lot of people actually put them in their schoolies. If you have a schoolie or a large RV or even a van, there are people that put them in vans. Put them in trailers. A cargo trailer, for example, would be a great for a wood stove. And finally, as I mentioned, if you buy land and you have a piece of land as a home base and you spend 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months a year on your land, a chainsaw is almost going to be a requirement. So we've covered who should buy a chainsaw, and the answer is not many of you unless you have a specific need. Which chainsaw, which style of chainsaw you should buy, and all the ways that you will be glad you have a chainsaw. So I hope all of you enjoyed this video. I'll give you a quick insight. I love this thing. This is the only one I'd buy. So I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, like us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit that thumbs up button, and we'll talk to you later. Bye now.